There are love stories kept secret for decades, only revealed when enough time has passed. And today, a very special secret has been confirmed by none other than Petula Clark, the legendary British music icon. She once had a relationship with Elvis Presley. At 92 years old, Petula has finally admitted what many fans have long suspected. But why did she keep it hidden for so many years? What was the true nature of their relationship? And what prevented them from being together? Join us as we uncover the little-known story of Elvis Presley and Petula Clark, a secret romance between two legends. A summer night in 1965, the glittering lights of Beverly Hills reflected off luxurious vintage cars. Inside a lavish mansion, laughter and music filled the air. But amidst the dazzling conversations, two souls quietly found each other in a rare moment, one they never expected would change their lives forever. Petula Clark and Elvis Presley. Two stars from different worlds, yet that night, among hundreds of strangers, they saw each other in a way no one ever had before. Petula Clark, the voice that carried Britain in its heart, was never one for extravagant parties. As she stepped into the grand mansion, she felt out of place. The people were dazzling, glamorous, yet something about it all felt distant to her. Petula was not the kind of woman who sought flashing cameras or empty compliments. She cherished sincerity, the simple moments, like when she was a young girl singing for soldiers during the war. But Hollywood was not England. Here, everything was too bright, too fast, too full of artificial smiles. She stepped out into the garden, seeking a quiet corner, when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Do you believe in fate?" Petula turned around. And for the first time, she saw Elvis Presley, not on a TV screen or a magazine cover, but in the flesh. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, yet the loneliest man in the world. Elvis Presley had everything: money, fame, millions of adoring fans. But when the stage lights dimmed, all that remained was an empty room and long, endless silences. Fame was like a blazing fire. It lit up the world but burned him in the process. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, never allowed him a private life. Every relationship was controlled, every person around him drawn not to him, but to the name Elvis Presley. That night, Elvis felt suffocated among the loud, laughing guests. Then he saw a woman, entirely different from the rest. She wasn't trying to draw attention, wasn't speaking in an animated voice. She simply stood there, quietly, as if searching for something. And for some reason, Elvis felt drawn to her. He walked over and, without hesitation, asked, "Do you believe in fate?" Petula looked at Elvis, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Not because she didn't know who he was, but because his voice carried a sadness she hadn't expected. She smiled softly. "I believe in moments, when you meet the right person at the right time." Elvis smiled. Not the dazzling, stage-ready grin the world knew, but a genuine smile. For the first time in a long while, he felt like someone truly understood him. And that night, beneath the shimmering lights, two lonely souls found each other. They sat in a quiet corner, talking for hours. Not about fame, not about music, but about far simpler things: childhood memories, unspoken dreams, the things they had lost along the way. Petula spoke of her childhood, of singing on the radio for British soldiers fighting in the war. How music became a source of hope in the darkest of times. Elvis listened, his eyes softening. Then it was his turn. He told her about Graceland, about being a poor boy in Tupelo, Mississippi. About how his mother once warned him that fame would never bring happiness if he lost himself along the way. Petula looked at Elvis. For the first time, she no longer saw a music icon, but a man still searching for himself in a world that never stopped spinning. And perhaps, in that very moment, she knew that no matter what happened, there would always be an invisible thread connecting them. Las Vegas, 1968. Petula Clark walked down the luxurious hotel hallway, the neon lights outside reflecting through the glass, casting vibrant streaks of color. She had just left a performance, still wrapped in her long coat, her soft curls framing her elegant face. But at that moment, something felt different in her heart. At the end of the hallway stood Elvis Presley, hands in his pockets, silently watching her. He was no longer the electrifying king of rock and roll on stage, nor the man whose bold hip moves drove millions of women wild. Right now, Elvis was simply a quiet man, his eyes filled with both warmth and sorrow. Petula gave a small smile. "Shouldn't you be at the party?" Elvis shrugged, a hint of mischief in his eyes. And what about you? You're not a fan of those parties, are you? She chuckled. Not exactly. I prefer quieter places. Elvis tilted his head, gesturing toward the hotel's back exit. Then let's step outside for a bit. And that night, a secret love story began. Letters in the shadows. After that night in Las Vegas, Petula returned to London, while Elvis was swept up in his relentless tour schedule. But they didn't let distance sever the strange connection between them. The first letter arrived on a cold winter afternoon. Petula, I've never met anyone like you. You make me feel understood. She read the words over and over, slowly, as if trying to memorize every inked letter. Many women had surrounded Elvis Presley, but no one ever spoke about his loneliness. No one ever saw past the glamour to the soul beneath, a soul longing for a genuine connection. And Petula wrote back, Elvis, we both shine in our own ways. But deep inside, perhaps we're just two lost souls. The letters continued, sent without a set schedule, only appearing whenever one of them felt the longing was too much to bear. They were two superstars, but when they were together, they were simply a man and a woman, escaping the spotlight. A small cafe in Hollywood. Elvis sat in a secluded corner, hat pulled low, sunglasses on. Petula walked in, passing by him like a stranger, then quietly sat at the table beside his. A few moments later, when no one was paying attention, Elvis whispered, I only have 30 minutes. Are you okay? She smiled softly, gently touching her coffee cup. As long as I'm here with you, I'm always okay. A night drive with no destination. They left the city behind, accompanied only by streetlights and the soft hum of the radio. Elvis suddenly asked, have you ever wanted to disappear? Petula was silent for a long moment before replying, yes. But if I disappeared, I wouldn't be able to see you. Elvis smiled, but his eyes held a quiet sadness. For both of them, these fleeting moments were more precious than anything else. The most unforgettable moment. It was a rainy night in Memphis. Petula had come to Graceland in secret after one of Elvis's performances. They sat on a long bench, watching raindrops trickle down the window. No music. No cheers. No one else, just the two of them. Elvis looked into her eyes, hesitating. Do you think, if things had been different, we could have truly been together? Petula gently squeezed his hand. I don't know. But I do know one thing, we have this moment. And I will treasure it forever. Elvis nodded, but in his eyes, there was something that resembled regret. They didn't need to say much. Both knew this love might never be acknowledged. But it was real. And sometimes, love doesn't need to be defined by marriage or public recognition. It only needs two hearts to understand each other, even if just for a fleeting moment. Why couldn't they be together? Elvis was an icon. He didn't just belong to one woman, he belonged to the world. Petula was a legend. She couldn't let this love destroy her career. And above all, they met at the wrong time. But the love was real. And even without a perfect ending, it remained an unforgettable part of their lives. Some love stories don't need the world's approval. As long as they exist, even in a single moment, that is enough. Some secrets are kept for a lifetime. There are memories that exist only in one person's heart, never spoken aloud. But then, one day, as they look back on the road they've traveled, they feel the need to share, not to shock the world, not to seek attention, but simply to preserve something beautiful before it fades into oblivion. At 92 years old, Petula Clark did just that. She spoke about Elvis Presley. A shocking revelation at 92. Imagine this, you have lived nearly a century, seen the golden days of fame, and witnessed the world change before your eyes. And then, at an age when most people slow down and enjoy the quiet of life, you decide to reveal a secret no one has ever known. Petula Clark sat there, in a sunlit room where black and white photographs from the 1960s still adorned the walls. The room bore the marks of a woman who had once reached the pinnacle of fame but later chose a life of quiet solitude. A journalist asked her a simple question. "Did you and Elvis Presley have a special relationship?" She gazed into the distance for a moment. Her eyes, though aged, still held the sparkle of long-buried memories. Then she smiled, a wistful, almost hesitant smile, before uttering the words that stunned everyone. "We had a very special relationship." A heavy silence filled the room. One of the greatest musical icons of the 20th century and one of Britain's most talented female artists had a special relationship. But then, Petula continued, and what she said next was even more unexpected. "Elvis wasn't just a friend. I know he had feelings for me." Just one sentence, but within it lay an untold story. If the walls of that room could talk, if memories could tell their own stories, they might reveal something no one ever suspected. Elvis Presley once loved Petula Clark in a way the world never knew. The love letters that were never revealed. Petula rose from her seat and walked to a small cabinet in the corner of the room. Her delicate yet frail hands reached for an old wooden box. She opened it. Inside were letters. Letters from Elvis Presley. The paper had yellowed with age, yet the handwriting remained intact, the words penned by Elvis himself, words that had never been read aloud to the public. She carefully took out one letter, brushing her fingers over it as if touching a fragment of the past. Then she read, "Pet, I've never met anyone like you. You're not just talented, but you have a beautiful soul. I want you to know that in this chaotic life, you are one of the gentlest things I have ever known." Her voice softened, as if each word pulled her back into another time. "I wish we had more time together. But no matter what, you will always have a special place in my heart." She smiled, but there was a quiet sadness in her eyes, the kind of sadness that comes from things left unfinished. Looking up, as if seeing a distant place, she murmured, "Elvis had a more sensitive heart than anyone I've ever met. He could make millions go wild on stage, but deep inside, he was just a man searching for a true connection. And perhaps, for a brief moment in his life, he found that connection with Petula Clark." Unspoken memories. Elvis and Petula shared private moments that had never been mentioned before. One time, they sat together for hours, just playing music. No stage, no audience, no blinding lights, just two artists sharing melodies. Elvis wasn't just a singer. He loved music in a way few understood. When we sat there, just the piano and our voices, I saw a different Elvis, a gentle, soulful, deeply emotional man. She recalled one particular night when they sat by an old piano in London. Elvis suddenly turned to her and said, "Pet, I want us to record a song together." Petula laughed, thinking he was joking. But he looked at her with sincere eyes. "I think our voices together would be incredible. A love song, just you and me." It was in that moment that she realized Elvis truly cared for her, not just as a colleague, but as someone who held a special place in his heart. But then, they never recorded that song. Busy schedules, distance, and unspoken reasons kept them from making that dream a reality. She whispered, "I always wonder, if we had recorded that song, what would it have sounded like? No one will ever know. But one thing is certain. Even though they never recorded together, in their hearts, there was a song that never faded. A love that didn't need validation." Petula Clark didn't share this story to stir controversy or spark debate. She simply wanted to tell it, because sometimes, beautiful things deserve to be remembered, even if they belong to the past. She doesn't need anyone to believe it, because she lived it. And now, as time grows short, she just wants the world to know. Elvis wasn't just a legend. He was a man with a great heart. And I was lucky enough to see that side of him. A love story never made public. A song never recorded. But still, a love in its own way. There are love stories that erupt like a storm, sweeping everything away, full of passion, fire, and intensity. But there are also loves that exist quietly, never named, never acknowledged, simply present, silent, yet no less profound. For Elvis Presley and Petula Clark, perhaps their love belonged to the latter. The first barrier: two different worlds. Imagine the setting of the 1960s, Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, an untouchable icon whose fame spanned across America. With millions of adoring female fans, his life revolved around tours, bright stage lights, Hollywood films, and the immense pressure of public expectations. And Petula Clark? A British artist with elegance and sophistication, an icon of European pop music. She was unlike the women typically seen beside Elvis, not a fiery Hollywood starlet, nor the gentle Southern beauty he was often drawn to. They came from two entirely different worlds. I always thought we were like two parallel lines. We understood each other, we appreciated each other, but there was no way for us to truly merge. Petula Clark. Despite their special connection, they remained two individuals standing on separate stages, their lives set on different paths. But was that the only reason they couldn't be together? The second barrier: Priscilla Presley and Elvis's responsibilities. At the time Elvis met Petula, he was in a complicated relationship with Priscilla Presley, the woman who would later become his wife. When Elvis started paying attention to Petula, Priscilla was still a young girl living at Graceland, and their relationship had yet to be fully public. But those who knew Elvis understood that he felt a deep sense of responsibility toward Priscilla. Elvis could never leave Priscilla. He felt guilty toward her, and there was also pressure from his family, from his image. A close friend of Elvis. Elvis may have been a superstar, a man with power on stage, but in real life, he was also bound by the expectations of society, his family, and himself. I think Elvis had feelings for me, but I never wanted to interfere in his life. I knew he had important things to take care of. Petula Clark. And so, despite the unspoken emotions, Petula and Elvis never crossed that line. The third barrier: the price of fame. There is a truth few people realize: Elvis Presley was never truly free. He couldn't love whoever he wanted. He couldn't be seen with a woman without sparking rumors. Every relationship he had was scrutinized, controlled by the public, the media, and even his own management. Elvis once told me that some days he just wanted to disappear, to go somewhere no one knew him, where no one could see him. But how could he? Petula Clark. Their love, if it ever existed, would never have had a chance to flourish in a normal way. They would have been caught in the whirlwind of media speculation, pressure, and endless scrutiny. Petula understood that. And she chose to hold on to those feelings as a beautiful memory rather than turning them into a battle with no end. Maybe if Elvis hadn't been Elvis, and I hadn't been Petula Clark, things would have been different. But we couldn't change that. A love that needed no definition. Some love stories need to be defined, to be recognized. But some loves only need to be held in the heart, with no need for anyone to know, no need for a name. I never thought of myself as Elvis's secret lover. He had his own life, and I had mine. But one thing I know for sure is that there was something very special between us. Petula Clark. The letters, the songs, the moments they shared, they were all real. But not everything in life has a perfect ending. Some stories are never fully written, yet that doesn't mean they never existed. And so, Elvis Presley and Petula Clark, two people from two different worlds, shared a love that needed no title, no public acknowledgement, but one that would always remain a part of them. Have you ever wondered what could have happened if time had given them just a little more? If Elvis Presley had not left this world too soon in 1977, could his life have taken a different turn? And could he and Petula Clark have truly been together? That's the question many fans have asked over the years. And perhaps Petula Clark herself has wondered the same. If Elvis had lived longer, would they have had a chance? When Elvis passed away at the age of 42, he was no longer the dazzling figure of his golden years. He had battled health issues, loneliness, and the immense pressure of fame weighing heavily upon him. But what's interesting is that, in his final years, Elvis was seeking change. He appeared less in the media. He started distancing himself from the glamorous yet turbulent life he once thrived in. He confided in close friends about his desire for a more peaceful existence. Meanwhile, Petula Clark continued her singing career but had also entered a more mature phase of life, one where love was no longer about fleeting passion but rather a profound understanding between two kindred spirits. I think Elvis had begun to realize what truly mattered. If he had lived, I'm not sure if we would have been together, but I know for certain that we would have had a very special connection. Petula Clark. If Elvis had not passed away in 1977, could there have been a day when he called Petula, invited her to Graceland, and said, "Why don't we give this a try?" Could Elvis have walked away from the spotlight for love? One undeniable truth is that Elvis Presley's life was never truly his own. He was heavily controlled. Figures like Colonel Tom Parker, his longtime manager, never wanted Elvis to have personal freedom. They controlled his career, finances, and even his relationships. Pressure from fans, with millions of female admirers worshiping him like a god, any woman who stood beside Elvis would have been scrutinized and criticized. His own inner conflict: he was a man with a warm heart, yet also an artist torn between his desire for a normal life and his duty to the public. So the real question is, could Elvis have walked away from it all for the sake of love? Elvis had a big heart, but he was also incredibly complex. I don't think he could have easily given up everything just to love someone. A close friend of Elvis. Even if he had the chance, Elvis may have always been trapped between love and responsibility. What if Petula Clark and Elvis had given it a try? Let's imagine, in another universe, they actually had a chance. If Elvis had reached out to Petula at the right time, perhaps after his career had slowed down, when he was truly ready for a peaceful love, could things have turned out differently? Picture a summer afternoon at Graceland. Petula walks into the grand living room, where Elvis's piano still sits. Elvis smiles, gently pulling her to sit beside him, his fingers lightly grazing the keys. "We never recorded a song together, did we?" he chuckles, his eyes warm. Petula laughs. "No, and that's probably one of my biggest regrets." They begin to sing, a soft love ballad, just the two of them in that room. No crowds. No stage. No blinding lights. Just them. Just music. And maybe, in that fleeting moment, they truly belonged to each other. But the truth is, Elvis is gone. Sadly, all these what-ifs will forever remain just that, what-ifs. Elvis Presley left this world too soon. And Petula Clark, despite always holding a special place for him in her heart, never had the chance to say everything she might have wanted to. Sometimes, I wonder, if we had just a little more time, would things have been different? But then I realize, maybe everything happened exactly as it was meant to. Petula Clark. Some loves don't need a happy ending. Some relationships don't need a label. And some people, though never together, will always hold a piece of each other's hearts forever.